Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving deep into a world that's both ancient and, you'll see, incredibly relevant to our lives right now: the Indian knowledge and education systems. So let's just jump right in with a huge question, one that really gets to the heart of everything. Why do we even bother with education? Is it all just to land a good job, or is it about something more? Something about building a meaningful life? This very question is what ancient Indian thinkers were completely fascinated by, and their answers shaped one of the world's oldest and most profound systems of learning. So, what was their answer to that big question? Well, for them, education wasn't just about learning a skill to make a living. No, it was way bigger than that. It was about understanding the fundamental nature of reality and figuring out your own place in it. It was a quest to discover what true knowledge really is. And that quest is really the foundation of what we call the Indian knowledge system, or IKS for short. Now, what's so cool about this is that it's not just a list of subjects like math or history. It's a whole worldview, a complete framework for understanding everything from the tiniest atom to the entire cosmos, all built on this beautiful idea that everything is deeply interconnected. So, what's this system actually built on? Well, you can think of it as resting on four incredibly powerful pillars. First, holistic development, meaning it's about educating the whole person: your body, your mind, and your spirit. Then there's sustainable living, this idea of being in harmony with nature. I mean, how relevant is that today? It's all held together by a strong ethical foundation, with principles like Dharma, which is all about right conduct, and Ahimsa, the principle of non-harm. And finally, it's super interdisciplinary. It just refuses to put knowledge into these separate little boxes. Science, philosophy, art, spirituality, it was all seen as part of the same grand tapestry. Okay, but think about it. How in the world do you organize and preserve this just massive ocean of knowledge for thousands and thousands of years, especially in a time before printing presses or the internet? Well, the answer lies in a brilliant concept called Shastra. A Shastra is basically the blueprint for an entire field of knowledge. Seriously, think of it like a super detailed, highly structured textbook or manual for anything. Whether you were studying architecture, medicine, politics, or philosophy, there was a Shastra for it that laid everything out in a system that could be studied, debated, and passed down from teacher to student, generation after generation. And you really can't overstate how crucial these were. They were like the hard drives of an entire civilization, preserving knowledge with stunning accuracy. They provided the core curriculum for all education, they laid out the ethical guidelines, and this is really important, they created a framework for lively intellectual debate called Shastrartha, which wasn't about winning an argument, but about collectively getting closer to the truth. It kept the knowledge from getting stale, it kept it alive and evolving. Now, it's important to know that not all knowledge systems were seen as the same. There was this fundamental split based on one single idea. Do you accept the authority of the ancient texts known as the Vedas? The Vedic traditions said yes. This includes most of what you might think of as mainstream Hindu philosophy. But on the other side, you had the Avadic traditions, like Buddhism and Jainism. They built their own incredibly profound systems of knowledge, but they did so without accepting the Vedas as their ultimate source. All right, so we've covered the what, the Indian knowledge system, and the how, the Shastras that structured it. But what did it actually look like to be a student? This brings us to the philosophy of the education system itself, which was truly and beautifully about learning for life's sake. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? The whole point wasn't to churn out a specialist or a worker bee. The goal was to achieve what they called purnata, completeness or wholeness. The entire system was designed to cultivate a fully realized human being, one who was balanced in their intellect, their ethics, and their spirit. And this education took place in a few different settings. At the very heart of it was the Gurukul. This was a residential school where you literally lived with your teacher, your guru, and you learned through this deep personal mentorship. For more basic, everyday education in the local village, you had Pathshalas. And then, for the highest levels of learning, you had the great Vishwavidyalayas, the ancient universities. And when we say universities, we aren't talking about small colleges. Places like Nalanda and Takshashila were enormous, sprawling international hubs of knowledge. I mean, these were the Harvard and Oxford of their time, drawing the absolute brightest minds from all across Asia to come and do advanced research in medicine, logic, mathematics, astronomy, you name it. So here's a quick flyby of this incredible journey. It all starts with the oral traditions of the Vedic period, passed down in Gurukuls. Then you have this golden age with the rise of those massive universities. But then came the colonial period, where a Western system was introduced, and many of these indigenous schools went into decline. And that brings us to today, to the modern era, where there's this growing movement to revive this ancient wisdom and integrate it back into the current system. So we've just traveled through thousands of years of history and philosophy. It's fascinating stuff. But you might be thinking, what does any of this have to do with me today, in the 21st century? Well, this is where it all comes together. This is where we connect all that ancient wisdom to our very modern questions. Look, if there is one core idea to take away from all of this, it's this one. The entire system was built around the concept of Jeevan Vidya, which means knowledge for life, not just knowledge for a living. The whole point was to equip you to create a life filled with purpose, balance, and understanding, where your job or your career was just one piece of a much bigger, richer puzzle. And that's exactly why this matters so much right now. In a world that's struggling with stress, burnout, climate change, and all sorts of ethical challenges, this ancient system offers us some timeless answers. It gives us powerful models for holistic well-being, practical principles for sustainable living, and it reminds us of the importance of an ethical foundation for society. And maybe most importantly, it encourages the kind of cross-disciplinary, big-picture thinking we desperately need to solve the complex problems we're facing today. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. In our world, which is so hyper-focused on specialization, on picking a narrow career path almost as soon as you can, what can we learn from an ancient system that had a totally different goal? What timeless lessons are waiting for us in a system whose ultimate aim was not to create a better worker, but to build a better, more complete human being?